Hello everyone, friends. As a continuation of the Smart Home series on Home Assistant, I will show how to connect devices that work via the Zigbee protocol to the server. With Wi-Fi everything is clear, you only need a router, but for Zigbee you need your own bridge, a coordinator. In this video I take the popular USB coordinator Sonoff ZB Dongle-P and, using it as an example, we'll go through the whole path. We will briefly look at the device itself, connect it to Home Assistant, figure out the two main operating options, the built-in ZHA integration and the alternative in the form of Zigbee2MQTT, and set them up in practice. In a separate section we will update the firmware of the dongle itself to get current fixes and stability, after which we will connect real sensors, switches, and other gadgets from different ecosystems, Tuya, Xiaomi, eWeLink, etc., so that they work together in one smart home and participate in automations and scenes, regardless of the brand. What Zigbee is and why it is needed. Zigbee is a wireless protocol for the smart home, created specifically for mass and very energy-efficient devices, sensors, switches, valves, sockets. It operates in the 2.4 GHz band, builds a mesh network, and requires a coordinator. It is the one that creates and runs the Zigbee network to which you then add devices. It is important not to confuse. Tuya, Xiaomi, or eWeLink are not protocols, but ecosystems and applications/clouds of different manufacturers. Within the same ecosystem you may find devices both on Zigbee and on Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. Therefore, if you want to befriend gadgets of different brands and ecosystems in one home, you need a common local smart home server. For us this is Home Assistant. Through the Zigbee coordinator, it builds a single network and allows you to connect devices from different manufacturers to one automation core, either directly through the built-in ZHA integration, or through the bundle of Zigbee2MQTT, an MQTT gateway, and a convenient front-end. As a result, you control everything from one place and assemble any scenarios, regardless of which application this or that sensor was born in. Specifications: Chip and stack. TICC 2652P Zigbee 3.0 IEEE 802.15.4 Pre-installed coordinator firmware ZStack 3.x.0 Interface: USB with CP2102N bridge. Transmitter power: up to plus 20 dBm. External removable SMA antenna. Software compatibility: works with Home Assistant via ZHA or Zigbee2MQTT, as well as other open-source platforms. Power and case: powered by USB 5V up to 100 mA, aluminum case to reduce interference. Operating temperature range -10 to plus 40 degrees Celsius. Network capacity: in a network with routers, up to 200 Zigbee devices are supported. The practical limit depends on the firmware and configuration. Firmware update: official Sonoff dongle flasher web tool or an add-on for Home Assistant, or firmware from the Conk ZStack repository. Supplied in a small cardboard box. At the top, the manufacturer's logo, below, an image of the device itself. On the back side the main specifications and information about the manufacturer are printed. Inside there are three things: the USB coordinator itself, an external antenna, and a brief manual. The manual contains basic information about the product in several languages and a QR code that takes you to a more detailed online page with a description and useful materials. The antenna is about 11 centimeters long, essentially the same as on old 2.4 GHz routers. Since Zigbee also works in this band, the hinge allows you to bend it at a 90-degree angle to set it vertically or parallel to the surface. The Sonoff ZB Dongle-P itself resembles a large flash drive in a metal case. The ribbed fins on the sides act as a small heatsink to dissipate heat. On one end there is a standard USB-A plug, on the other, a connector for the external antenna from the kit. The back side is smooth, so it is convenient to secure the dongle with a zip tie or Velcro and place it not next to the server, but where reception is better. I separately recommend immediately taking a short USB extension cable 30 to 70 centimeters long and connecting the coordinator through it. This way you solve three tasks at once. First, you will not simultaneously occupy the neighboring port on the computer or mini server. The dongle itself is quite wide and can block the second socket. Second, you will take the antenna out of a cabinet, rack, or from under a desk. Extra walls and metal surfaces often muffle the signal, and Zigbee is a low-power network. it is important for it to see the space. And third, you will move the coordinator away from possible sources of interference. Near the server and especially with USB 3.0 ports and cables, interference may appear in the 2.4 GHz band, and the network may operate unstably. Therefore, the optimal scenario for the first launch is the dongle on an extension, the antenna set vertically in a more open place, and the server itself can stand where it is convenient for it. Now we connect the coordinator to the smart home server. I use my mini PC, a review of this server is already on the channel, and how to install and do the basic setup of Home Assistant I also showed earlier. There will be an insert from that video here. From practice, USB 3.0 ports often give interference in the 2.4 GHz band, so I connect the dongle via a short USB extension to USB 2.0 or through a high-quality extension to an available port. This is more stable. I insert the ZB Dongle-P into the extension, connect it to the server, then reboot Home Assistant or the server itself and go to the web interface. Our task is to make sure that the system sees the dongle's serial port. In Home Assistant this is usually a path like dev TTY USB 0. ZHA, Zigbee Home Automation. What it is. The built-in Home Assistant integration that turns your USB dongle into a full-fledged Zigbee gateway. It runs on top of the Zigbee library, so it is compatible with different coordinators. It creates a single Zigbee network. Devices are added and managed directly from the Home Assistant interface. Pros: simple installation and operation, out of the box, does not require MQTT, everything is configured in the HA UI. Official documentation and built-in tools, mesh network visualization, advice on channels and repeaters, hardware recommendations. OTA updates of devices. For a number of manufacturers they are enabled by default, extended through Zigbee providers. Backups and migration. ZHA automatically makes backups of the Zigbee network. You can restore the network or transfer it to another radio dongle from the network settings. Cons: compatibility of specific models depends on Zigbee/quirks. Exotic devices sometimes require quirks or updates. Advanced fine settings are less exposed in the UI than in Z2MQTT, for example, report/threshold changes for sensors. Interpretation of LQI. The developers themselves warn that LQI is calculated differently in different stacks and is not always suitable as an absolute indicator of link quality. Zigbee2MQTT. What it is. A separate open-source gateway that connects the Zigbee network to Home Assistant via MQTT. It has its own web interface, rich settings, a huge database of supported devices. Integration with HA goes through MQTT discovery. Pros: very wide support for devices, thousands of models from hundreds of vendors, and a fast pace of adding new ones. Flexibility and fine-tuning, binding, direct links, remote, LAMP, group, Zigbee groups, detailed logs, management of sensor reporting parameters, and more. Good integration with HA through MQTT discovery. Devices are pulled in automatically. Backups/migrations. For TI ZStack and C-Labs Ember, transferring the network between coordinators without repairing all devices is supported, as well as instructions for migration from / to other stacks. Cons: you need an MQTT broker and a separate Zigbee2MQTT service. This is a plus in flexibility, but adds steps to installation and administration. Some tools are through the frontend / additional cards. Topology visualization is often done by means of the Z2M frontend / add-ons, for example, a community network map, and not in HA itself. Migrations between different types of coordinators are limited. Full backup/restore is not officially supported for all adapters. The best are Stack and Ember. What should a beginner choose? If you need maximum simplicity and fewer components, start with ZHA. It is built into Home Assistant, supports backups, and gives everything basic for a stable network. If wide compatibility, fine settings, groups/bindings, and flexible debugging are important, take Zigbee2MQTT. You will need to set up MQTT, but there are more features. I chose Zigbee2MQTT for myself. How to connect and set up the dongle via ZHA. Hardware connection. Insert the Sonoff ZB Dongle-P into a USB port via a short USB extension, preferably into USB 2.0. After that, reboot Home Assistant or the server. Go to Settings System Hardware menu, All Hardware, and find the stable device path of the form dev serial by ID. It is better to use exactly it so that after reboots the path does not change. Adding the ZHA integration. Open Settings, Devices and Services, add Integration and select Zigbee Home Automation, ZHA. If HA itself discovered ZHA, just click Configure. In the Setup wizard, specify the serial device path. Paste the copied path from dev serial by ID, then submit. If auto detection of the radio module did not work, manually select radio type ZNP Texas Instruments for the CC2652P. We check that the network has been created. After saving, ZHA will create a Zigbee network and show the integration map. At this stage, you can open Configure Network Settings and immediately make a backup of the network. ZHA supports automatic/manual backups and subsequent migration to another coordinator, adding the first device. Go to Settings, Devices and Services, Zigbee Home Automation, Configure, Add Device. Put the device into reset/pairing mode according to the manufacturer's instructions, button/pin, multiple on, off. After a few seconds it will appear in the list. The visualization will look like this: the main coordinator, then two routers, because we have them directly connected to the 220-volt network, and an end device on batteries or accumulators, some kind of sensor. Now let's set up the dongle through ZBee2MQTT. This will be a little longer, but this option is my favorite. In the next video I will show how to install the integration. I put the dongle through a short USB extension, preferably into USB 2.0, reboot Home Assistant/host. I open Settings, System Hardware menu, All Hardware, and copy the stable port path of the form dev serial by ID. It does not change after reboots. MQTT broker. If there is no broker yet, we install the official Mosquitto broker from the add-on store, launch it. Installing ZBee2MQTT add-on. In the add-on store we add the repository https://github.com/zigbee2mqtt/hasio-zigbee2mqtt, find Zigbee2MQTT, click Install, Start, Open Web UI. Onboarding will appear. Zigbee2MQTT had already been configured for me. As we can see, this is our dongle. Hardware stack. In MQTT info we get the following information. Two devices are already connected to it. We go to the Zigbee2MQTT tab, Settings, Serial, and if auto detection did not work, you need to open the add-on config and write it manually. Adapter stack and the port, either the port dev TTY USB 0 or dev serial by ID your underscore port. This is the recommended format for TICC2652P adapters. If in doubt you can temporarily try dev TTY USB dev TTY ACM 0, but better exactly by ID. I check the MQTT link and integration with HA. In the Zigbee2MQTT config, the broker parameters must be specified, for example, MQTT server core Mosquitto port 1883, user add-in, password your password. And for auto pickup of devices in Home Assistant, the Home Assistant integration is enabled true. Usually all this is enabled by default in the add-on. We just checked. We open the network for connecting devices. In the Zigbee2MQTT web interface we click Permit Join, the icon at the top. The network will be open for a limited time, by default 254 seconds. We put the sensor/lamp into pairing mode according to the manufacturer's instructions. The device will appear in the list and will automatically be pulled into Home Assistant via MQTT Discovery. You can make a backup of the add-on's data, the Zigbee2MQTT data folder. This will come in handy when transferring. Most parameters are edited through the web interface and saved in the Zigbee2MQTT configuration YAML. Briefly about common, sticking points, and solutions. The message no valid USB adapter found at add-on start. Write manually adapter stack and port dev serial by ID, restart the add-on and look at the logs tab. If devices are not found, make sure that you clicked Permit Join, the network is not open permanently, reset the device to pairing mode. If there are periodic disconnections/instability, move the dongle away from USB 3.0 ports and noisy electronics. This really gives a gain. USB 3.0 interference in the 2.4 GHz band is confirmed even in a white paper. A short 30 to 70 cm extension usually saves the day. ZB Dongle-P firmware via PC with a browser. Why so? This method is convenient before the first start, when the HA server itself is not yet configured / without internet and when the server itself is isolated. I use the official Sonoff web flasher, it flashes right from the browser in a minute. Step 1. Connect the dongle to the PC. I insert the ZB Dongle-P into a free USB port. I open the official Sonoff dongle flasher. I will give the link in the description to the video. I click Connect and confirm access. The browser will request permission twice. This is normal. The serial port is opened the first time. The device descriptor is read the second time for automatic model detection. If the model is not recognized, I select it manually. ZB Dongle-P. Step 2. Select the firmware. I click Change Firmware and choose the type. To operate as a coordinator with Home Assistant you need Zigbee coordinator. The router profile flashes the dongle into a repeater. This is a different scenario. For the ZB Dongle-E model there are additionally open thread multipan options. We do not need them in this video. You can also upload your own firmware file, custom, for example, a build from the conch repository. I confirm the selection with Apply. Step 3. Flash. I click Flash and wait for completion, usually less than 1 minute. At the end I replug the dongle. I pulled it out and plugged it into the port so that it would be picked up by the system again. I click Connect and make sure that we have the latest firmware. What is important to remember? Driver on Windows/Mac OS. If the port does not appear, I install the CP210X USB to UART VCP driver for the Silicon Labs bridge, Windows/Mac OS. In Linux, as a rule, support is already present. I do not flash foreign brands with this tool. The official flasher is intended for Sonoff. Incompatible socks can brick the device. Coordinator versus router. If you want to use the dongle as the main brain of the Zigbee network, choose coordinator. Router mode is a network amplifier/repeater. It is also added separately to the coordinator later. If something went wrong, the port is not visible/does not connect, I close all programs that could occupy the COM/TTY, ZHA, Z2M terminals. Unplug the dongle for 5 seconds and plug it back in. Try another USB port/cable. Reboot the PC. If necessary, connect flash again. Flashed with the wrong type. If the bootloader is intact, I simply reflash with the correct firmware via the same web tool. After flashing, I return to the smart home server. Connect the dongle via a short USB extension. Go to HA. I will use either ZHA or Zigbee2MQTT. Both integrations work correctly with the ZB Dongle-P. We have already made separate step-by-step sections about installation and setup, but you can also do firmware updates directly through the Home Assistant server. Now I will show how to update the firmware of the Sonoff ZB Dongle-P directly from Home Assistant, without a computer at hand. This method is convenient before the first start of the network and if the server itself is isolated. We will add an external add-on repository, install the flasher, and flash the coordinator in a couple of minutes. Step 0. Preparation. Before flashing I free up the serial port. I stop ZHA or Zigbee2MQTT. At one time only one service can use the port. In Zigbee2MQTT do this via add-ons Zigbee2MQTT breaker stop. Also Zigbee2MQTT stop. We make sure that everything is turned off and the port is freed. Next, go to the Settings add-ons, click Add-on Store, click the 3 dots here, then Repositories. I add the repository. We can take it directly from the site, or I will put it in the description under the video. We paste it, click Add. I close the add-on manager, scroll down, and here we see Sonoff Dongle Flasher. On the Info tab we click Install. Now we click the Start button. After that we can open the Open Web UI interface for flashing. We click Connect, it searches for our devices. Here it is found, we select it, check the box, confirm. Next comes the firmware update to this version, but we can change it here to select either an existing firmware. We can also change to router or select our own firmware by uploading it from the computer. We select Zigbee that this is not a router, but a coordinator and click Flash. That is, essentially this is the same as we did through the web interface, but you do not need a web browser or a computer. Everything is done directly through Home Assistant. On the right is a small FAQ for solving emerging questions. I open Zigbee2MQTT settings about. At the top you can see the coordinator block, the type for example ZStack3x0 and the revision line in the form 202400710. This is the build date, year, month, day. The port is not visible/connection is not given. Close all services that could occupy the port, ZHA, Z2M, pull out and reinsert the dongle. Is it necessary to repair devices after the update? Usually not, if the network NVRAM is not affected and you remained on the same branch of the coordinator firmware, but a backup of the network before the update is always a good idea. In Z2M, a backup of the data folder, in ZHA network settings backup. First, the general principle. I always start with devices that are powered from the mains, sockets, repeaters, relays, lamps. They will become the frame of the Zigbee network and will help to connect battery sensors further without nerves. During pairing, I keep the device 1 to 2 meters from the coordinator, or a strong router, and after adding I immediately move it to a permanent place and give the network a couple of dozen minutes to rebuild. Battery sensors often fall asleep during polling. I periodically wake them with a short press of the button while the interview is going on. Let's do this through Zigbee2MQTT. I open the Zigbee2MQTT web interface and click Permit Join. The network will open for a few minutes. I put the device into pairing mode. In the right panel /logs you can see the interviewing process. As soon as the device is found, I go to its card, give it a friendly _name, a readable name. If necessary, I change the exposed options. In Home Assistant, the entities will arrive automatically via MQTT discovery. I quickly check that the values are updating. After connecting a series of devices, I turn off Permit Join so that the network does not remain open. If it is not found the first time, check that ZHA and Z2M are not running simultaneously. One serial port cannot be shared. Reset the device to factory settings, as in the manual, and repeat pairing. Bring it closer to the coordinator/router. Remove obvious sources of interference, USB 3.0, power cables, HDMI close to the dongle. For sleepy sensors, continue to keep them awake with short presses while the interview is going on. I switch to the Network tab, and as we can see, here is my coordinator. Here are our 2 additional devices. The network between them is built like this. In the center the sensor is spinning. If one device fails, the network will automatically rebuild. When you have such a coordinator as the Sonoff ZB Dongle-P in your home, you literally assemble your smart home anew, but already on your own terms. It unites devices from different ecosystems, Tuya, Xiaomi, eWeLink and others, into one common network, where everything works together and is subordinate to one center, your home assistant. It no longer matters in which application a sensor or switch was born, you add them to a single system, build scenes and automations as it is convenient for you, and not as the manufacturer invented. The most pleasant thing is independence. Your server is your home. Even if the internet went down or another cloud service changes the rules, buttons, sensors, relays, and scenes continue to live locally. Extra latency goes away, the whims of other people's servers disappear, and privacy and predictability come first. You updated the dongle firmware, chose ZHA or Zigbee2MQTT, and in a few minutes you already have the first bundle. Motion turns on the light, water leakage shuts off the valve, the climate sensor controls heating. You add new devices, the network only becomes stronger and the scenarios richer. If you have long wanted to bring everything together in one place and stop depending on a dozen applications and accounts, this is the very path. A small device, one setup, and your smart home really becomes yours, fast, reliable, and understandable. You take the dongle, connect it, flash it to the current version and start assembling a home where all brands finally work for you. You will find all the links to the products in the description under the video. There is also a link to my Telegram channel, where even more interesting gadgets, discounts, and useful information on smart home systems and useful communication and answers to questions await you. There is also a link to a smart home forum, where topics are divided into sections. It is now easier to find the necessary information. Do not forget about the Facebook group, and also subscribe to my channel on the social network X. Interesting news and selections also come out there. Do not forget to like if the video was useful, and subscribe to the channel so as not to miss new interesting reviews. Thank you all for watching. Peaceful skies and goodness. Bye bye.